reality. So we have a powerful testimony that I want you to hear in the form of a conversation. Honestly, I wish you had an opportunity to hear some of the staff meeting conversations, and some of the things that this lady shares are absolutely just straight from the throne of heaven. So we're grateful that we have this in our congregation, not this person, but just the revelation as well. So can I have Gabby Middlestetter come up this morning? How are you?
I'm good. I'm actually really nervous for some reason.
Don't be nervous. That's why I'm here.
Normally
So you
I'm
don't have to
okay
be nervous.
sharing.
Yeah, you're going to do just fine. I'm sorry. That was the only ones we had. Do we want to get a small
Yeah,
one?
we need to get some custom size up here.
Okay. All right. If anybody knows any custom stool makers,
Bring
send
it
them
down
our
a
way.
little bit.
And I don't know. Maybe we can get I don't know. No, we'll figure it out.
I need like a coffee holder here.
Oh my goodness. I guess we're just gonna have to get a full-on table and just do
Yeah.
it that way. And all right, how many are excited? You can have your coffee. You don't have to care about the carpet anymore. Yeah, just keep it off this carpet, please. That's all I'm asking. In all seriousness, though, a couple weeks ago we started talking about Psalm 16 and who maintains my lot. We talked about the boundary lines we draw for ourselves, and are not the boundary lines God draws for us, and we wonder why we're in bondage. And we blame Satan sometimes for the bondage we bring ourselves, because we've drawn a boundary line through things like, I will never be treated that way again. I will never have this happen to me again. Nobody's ever going to hurt me that way again. How many know that most of the boundary lines you draw are usually drawn out of a negative place? Right? But it limits me because now, I remember I got a prophecy one time, Gabby, from this lady, and it was 100% spot on, 100%. And I was young. I was living in Florida. I wasn't even here. But one of the things she said was, you need a father in your life, and you need to let the pastor father you. And I thought, I got a dad. Literally what I thought. And I walked out the back door and I never went back. She was right. I was wrong. I drew a boundary line. So fast forward, standing right there, Laddie McDonough prophesies over me. God's going to bring fathers into your life, and some of them he's already brought. What was God doing? God was erasing the boundary line. Why did I draw it? Because of pain. Why did I draw it? Because of woundedness. Why did I draw it? Disappointment. All of those things. So we started talking about that, Gabby, and then we were in the office, and you started talking to us, and I just want to start this morning. You can share as much or as little as you want just about your testimony and where God brought you to. I guess just start there, like a bit of your testimony, and then we'll get to the dream you were sharing with us.
Okay, so a lot of new faces. So my testimony is pretty lengthy, so I'm going to shorten it up. I grew up in a Hispanic household. I was sexually abused by my dad. When I met Daniel, he brought me here, and the Lord just really started ministering.
Daniel's her husband, for
Yeah.
those of you that are new.
And the Lord just really started ministering to me, and there was like, in the midst of the ministry that he was doing, there were still so many questions that I've had of always the why. Like, why did it happen to me? Why were they like not watching me? Like, did my mom not know? Did my dad not know what he was doing? And there was just so many things that the Lord was doing, and it's been a long, long journey. I've been here for 21 years, and I texted Pastor Tom yesterday because he had asked me to share, and then I got really, really sick yesterday. Like, my sinuses were bad, and I felt the Lord tell me that this is the ending of my chapter, of that chapter. And I'm like, you know what? It's regardless if I'm up here sharing or not, that dream that the Lord showed me was the end of all my questions were completely done. And I love how loving and merciful he is, that he will show us things within time. And sometimes we have to be okay if he doesn't give us the answers, because it doesn't benefit us. Like, why would I need to know why he did the things that he did? Really, that's irrelevant. I want my freedom from the Lord. Like, that doesn't even matter.
So before we get to the dream, I want you to touch on this because we had an opportunity. We were both on the same trip. We went to Africa, and we were getting in. I can tell you where I was standing in Africa. And what year was that? What year did we? 2017. So yeah, that was 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. And Gabby just made this comment, and she said the years of my abuse were the same amount of years of my healing. Now, some of y'all are scared, and I get it. But if you will embrace that and know that God has a plan, even if it's not as fast as you think it should be. I mean, for me to remember that it really made an impact on me. Now, you kind of went over it, not the abuse, but the healing process. I remember you telling me that when you first came here, you weren't quite sure if you wanted to stay or not stay, and feeling like a mess and all of that.
I wanted to run. I walked in here, and probably TMI, but I felt naked. Like, literally, you walk in here, and any of you who have been new to the church, you walk in, you feel completely exposed, and it's the spirit, and I didn't know that at that time. I felt that the enemy was just exposing all the sin that I walked into and all the things that I did, and nobody knew anything. They just watch you here bawling, crying. And they don't know what's going on, but they see what you are so concerned of everybody watching you, but what they see is they see the breakthrough of what God's doing in your life, and that's the beauty of it.
For those that may be new, we had a prophecy years ago that we'd be a hospital, and we've watched that. I've been here a long time. My wife's been here longer. There's people who have been here since the beginning, and they've watched people come in and get healed. And it's a process. I mean, Gabby, don't feel bad. I sat right on that front row. I was bawling. Chris Rakatayan came and put his arm around me, and I just broke. And I'm like sobbing, and one of my friends, he's like, I heard this girl crying, and I looked over, and it was you. And he's like, so I came and prayed for you. I don't know if he came and prayed that my cry would be more masculine or what, but you know what? I didn't care, because there was just, and I couldn't even enumerate to you today what it was, but God was bringing healing, and God was bringing release. And I think it was if you've ever been around Chris, he has such a father's heart, and you just get broken by it in a good way. And especially that day for me. So I understand. And so if you feel like, what's going on here? It's nothing bad. You're going to be all right. Just stay with it, because it doesn't mean you're broken. Sometimes, too, you feel uncomfortable because God starts stirring the gifting in you that he put in you before you even took a breath. And if you've never experienced it, you've never been around it, you're like, what is this? It's okay. It's okay. Just keep coming, because you did, right? And you kept pursuing, and you kept walking. That's a key to this testimony. Keep pursuing. Keep walking, no matter the length, no matter the time. So, was it, I don't know. Go ahead, Gabby. You're looking something up.
Yeah, it was just the song that we were singing, and it was the last one that said, "Simple obedience changes history." And I felt the Lord tell me that is your song. And what happens when you come up here, or even in your room, and you're releasing things, you're walking in obedience, and the Lord is changing everything. And I am so grateful that, I made the choice of either pursuing the Lord or not. And my life would have been completely different if I chose to walk out and not be uncomfortable. Because it is very uncomfortable when the Lord is pressing, and there's going to things that come up, and there's like thoughts that come up, and God's like, I'm not bringing it up to hurt you. I'm bringing it up to release you and to bring you freedom. And it's just the reality of things, and you're willing to put in the work. So I'm watching my kids. We have changed the history. Our marriage alone is a testimony. That we've been married for 21 years, and it's healthy, and it's just different because we both chose to walk in obedience. And our kids, I'm enjoying it. They're doing the same thing. And
so before we go on, just to give you some, how old were you when you got married?
18.
Mm-hmm. And how old was he?
18.
Yeah. A lot of learning.
Odds were against us for sure.
But you've made it 21 years,
mm-hmm.
and God has been faithful because you continued.
Yeah.
I saw briefly something you posted to him on Facebook talking about we each made a decision at times to start over.
Yeah. The Lord showed me I'm living the life I almost gave up on. So I was like, God, it is so good. It is
Y'all
so
need
good.
to write that down. I'm serious. I'm not trying to be... Don't give up on the life that you haven't even gotten to yet. Because the healing hurts. Because it feels vulnerable. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Fast forward now. Was it last week, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks ago.
Let them know, like, what happened.
So with the journey of walking with, letting God heal me and stuff like that, at a certain point, I stopped asking the questions, and God was just showing me in visions and dreams of, the truth behind my dad's life of the way it is. Before, this was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, he showed me my dad was actually abused by somebody that he knew, and then my mom actually confirmed it weeks after that, and I was like, I already knew. The Lord showed me, but he showed me to give me peace, right? And so a couple weeks ago, just when you think you're done with the journey, I think God just throws you a curveball, and he's like, hey, catch this. So it didn't, I love the peace that came from it, and I love the freedom that I think it gave me. It's so hard to describe the feeling, but it just felt very peaceful. So in my dream, I was almost like I was my dad, okay? And I don't know if you guys who have little kids or when you were little, remember putting a sheet over your head and like, oh, I'm going to find you, like pretending you're a ghost or whatever. My kids did it. But you can't really see. It was like a white sheet. You can't really see, but you see figures. And that was his life. That's all he knew. He was blinded. And God was just showing me, he gave me a feeling of compassion. So I don't have any hatreds towards him or anything. I've forgiven him for everything. But I think what God showed me is a different, I don't know, it just felt different. It felt like, if God told me to wash his feet, I think now I would say yes. It's like I would just do it. And it wouldn't be like a struggle or anything. I was like, it's so hard to explain the feeling of compassion, but it's like they've done what they've done, but yet I choose to love them and forgive them, and I want his freedom at the end of it. I would love God to grab a hold of his heart and just expose everything that he has done, and not in a bad way, but to walk him out of that bondage that he's been walking from. And I was just so grateful for that dream, and I was like, God, you're so good. It's been 21 years, and you finally showed me that, and I would have been okay if he didn't, but I think he gave me an understanding for my dad.
So we didn't touch on this, but I think it's important. You said you've forgiven him. So the process of forgiveness, it's a process, isn't it?
It is a big process, and I said it more than I felt it. And the Lord really had to convict me and said, I understand you are saying it, but you have to feel it, and you have to really let go and really forgive. And with forgiving him, I had to release questions. I had to release where's my answer? Where was my protection? I had to let go of that and just, okay, God, I will do what you want me to do within your timing for everything.
Oftentimes, forgiveness starts when you don't feel it. You have to guide your heart. You can't let your heart try to guide you, because the heart still hurt. But I choose to forgive. Right? And it's where we start. And then we walk through the process of forgiveness. And then God brings, and this is what just really hit my heart. We're just sitting in staff meeting. She starts sharing this, and I'm like, goodness gracious. God, you are so good to bring us not just to forgiveness, but to compassion. Where you allow us to see things the way that they saw them, not just so we have an understanding, but now we have a compassion, and now we're praying out of a place of compassion for a person that by every right, you don't have to have compassion for, right? But Jesus on the cross, what he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Jesus had an understanding that they're blind. Like she said, they're walking with sheets over their faces. I love the imagery. It's like you can see a figure, right? And as much as I may be the recipient of whatever their sin is, sometimes it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with their own deception. And when God can separate you from that, then you begin to have a compassion, because if it hadn't have been me, it would have been somebody. Like if I hadn't been born in that family, whoever had been born in that family, the same thing would have happened because of the deception. Now, we can go to God and be like, well, God, if you were really God, you'd rip the sheet off their head and do all of this stuff. But I can't put on God my own understanding. In Proverbs 16, one of the verses, 9, Proverbs 16:9 says, a man's heart plans his ways, but the Lord directs his steps. What does that mean? It means in my heart I can feel some things, and I can say this is the course of my life because of what's happened to me, because of how I feel, and because of all of these things, and because, have you ever put this parameter or drawn this boundary line? I'll forgive them when they come and apologize and admit what they did was wrong. And you absolutely sever relationships because they won't come and apologize. Anybody? You don't have to raise your hand. But that's a boundary line that God's not maintaining. And the longer you go, the crustier you're going to get. And the angrier you're going to get. Why? Because people will bump that. People will bump that boundary. And so now it started with one person, now it's 10. But I'm justified because I was justified with one, now I'm justified with 10. But if I go to the cross, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. I can't ever get to compassion unless I start with forgiveness. So what Gabby's talking to you about, this testimony, if you'll let it overcome in your life today and you start with forgiveness, even if you don't feel it, the key is start. God, I choose to forgive. Even, Gabby, the disciples were like, how many times we got to forgive?
A lot. One of the things that, as I was reading scripture, God showed me, there's a scripture that talked about a sheep without a shepherd. My dad was a sheep without a shepherd. Right now, I'm grateful that I have a shepherd that guides me. But it's like I can't hold something against him. And even gives me compassion for even people that have hurt me in the past, that not as bad as that is, but people who walk in sin, or people who, did me wrong or whatever, I now can understand and extend them the same compassion, because we don't know the reasons why they did the things that they did. We just have to love them and, kind of walk through that.
I just want to touch on this, if you would, Gabby. As you walk through healing, as you let God guide you through that, how did you see your relationship, even in your marriage, change, or with your children? She has 3 wonderful children. They have a wonderful marriage, like she said, 21 years. But starting at 18 is probably rough, but then starting at 18 and being not pregnant and not being healed and not being, but right, and having to navigate all of that. How did you see those, how did your personal pursuit of God and him walking you through this change your marriage?
We will be here for a while, guys. It is tremendous. Like, the minute I was walking through my healing and stuff, I've asked my kids many times for forgiveness, and they say my last kid is the one that got the better version of myself. Because I felt like the Lord really, throughout my walk, he's like the reset button. You're going back to the original created person that you were meant to be. And I'm like, you just had all these things that kind of sabotaged it, but I'm putting you back to kind of where you were, like a reset. So it was really hard, because in the midst of trying to walk through my healing, I'm dealing with kids, I'm dealing with marriage. It was really, really hard to juggle it all. And I guess I was trying to grieve in the midst of everything. And it was so hard to try to be a parent and be a good wife and not hold grudges, because I was, like you said, I had these, lines that I'm like, you're not going to talk to me the way you are. I don't care how tall you are. I will get on your face. It was really, really tough. And we had our moments where the Lord's like, he had to humble me. And that was only because I was walking in obedience. So not only in the midst of that, God had to show me that I had to release him to be the husband that he's called him to be, not what I expected him to be. And I had to walk in obedience on that, because I'm like, well, he's not taking out the trash. I was like, yeah, but not right away. It was an hour later, but he did it. So be grateful for that. So God was just trying to show me a different perspective of life as I was walking through my healing, to look at the positive and not all the negative. Yeah, you're walking through all this stuff, but look at the positive and the changes that are coming because of it.
This is so good, and I don't want to labor here, but how hard is it if you haven't grown up with a good covering to receive covering in your life, even from your husband? Was it difficult?
It was difficult, and I think for the most part, because my dad was so controlling and I saw how abusive he was even to my mom, I made a vow, like, I'm not going to let him tell me what to do. When the first thing you read the Bible, you're like, submit to your husband. I was like, oh, no way. I'm gonna maybe that one guy, we're going to have to really work on that one. But I think just even in this year, I think the Lord kind of showed me, as we walked even through our healing, because I did my personal healing, he did his, and then we were healing as a couple, because we did so much damage in our marriage that because of all the chaos, and we had to both work on it and really focus on letting God be in God and working in us. But one of the things that he showed me recently is that Daniel and I have been walking together like this, and he showed me, I think you're ready to where now you submit under him and you walk under his authority. And it's only because he also has been walking in obedience of letting God kind of work in him and make him, or for him to become the godly man of God that he's been calling him to be. But that's his own, you work on yourself as individuals and stuff, and I'm just in the back just kind of praying. My kids don't like it when they hear me pray, because I always say, God, if you want them, they're like, no, stop. God always follows what you say. So
we won't go deep into this. It's not a question you can answer. I'm just going to posit a little grace to the men here. If you want her to honor you, you need to be honoring. If you want her to submit to your authority, what authority are you submitted to in your life? My wife knows she can call she can call Apostle Dave, she can call any of the pastors, any of the RIM pastors, and because there's a covering, I walk in submission. Now, do I do it right all the time? No. Am I a great husband all the time? No. But at the same time, she has a God-given safety net and covering in that. And so you can't expect submission if you won't walk in authority. Not your authority, under authority. And 100%. Thank you, friend. You must submit if you want to be submitted to. It's the way that it works. And so the reason I say that is, if not, you fall into the deception of Adam. God, it's the woman you gave me. Well, Proverbs says that a wife is a gift from God. So are you arguing with him about the gift he gave you? And don't argue with me about how you got married and how it happened, and we probably never should have got together. Well, if you're married and you're together now, so God is creatively redemptive. But it doesn't happen overnight, right? I got to walk through. I appreciate the vulnerability and the truthfulness of what she just said. We wounded each other a lot, and now we're walking through the healing process. That's okay. I mean, it's not okay to wound each other, but guess what? Nobody in here is going to raise their hand and say, we have the perfect marriage, and we've never had anything, and we've never hurt each other, and I've never screamed at my wife. I mean, some of you may have never screamed at your wife, but you're passive-aggressive, so whatever. I just didn't talk to her for 3 weeks. Oh, yeah, that's better than yelling. I'm just silent and treat you like you shouldn't be here. Right? Now, yelling's not good either, right? And neither one is good. But what I'm getting to is God can redeem, restore, heal, make the back part better than the first part. Right? Some of us come from really broken places, and there's a learning curve to marriage. Right? Because I'm responding to them the way, out of my hurt, out of my whatever that is. And so don't think you stand before God and all of a sudden, like, we got married and went, oh, it was great, you're married, right? I remember walking back down this aisle going, I don't feel any different. I didn't realize how bad of a statement that was, but I was expecting to feel different, right? Kind of like a baptism. I felt different. I felt clean. I felt, I was excited. I was excited to be married, right? But I didn't realize I was pulling a U-Haul up to my house. Of all my hurt, all my expectation, all my rejection, all my whatever, right? And then you start unpacking. You think you're unpacking the chair or the love seat or whatever. The first fight of rejection when you get married and you don't have a lot of money is whatever furniture you bring into the marriage as a man. Well, it worked in my apartment. Yeah, no, not here. I'm saying that as a joke, but it's touching a nerve with some of y'all because you realize, look, I did a lot of damage, and some of us don't want to take responsibility even for it now. And you wonder why there's a chasm. You wonder why there's a coldness. You wonder why there is a place where we function, but we don't thrive. Because we have to go through the next step and allow God to heal it and be creatively redemptive on the other end. Now, it takes two. Right? And I love what you said. I did mine, and he did his. And then together, right? A personal pursuit. Men, I'm just going to talk to men this morning. If you don't have a personal pursuit of God, and you are letting her lead, that's not how that's supposed to work. Women, same thing. You have to have your own personal pursuit. You have to have your own pursuit of God. Because guess what? Either side of that coin, sometimes we're not right. You've heard this testimony, but I'll share it again. We got into an argument. Ileana left. I'm standing in our bathroom, and I'm like, God, what happened? And he said, you happened. If you don't have a personal pursuit, you'll stick in, well, if she hadn't said that, I told her never to talk to me that way. If you married a strong woman, at some point she's going to talk to you a certain kind of way. And sometimes it's necessary. You hear Apostle Dave talk about flying the plane, right? And the guy and he slapped him in the back of the head. You all remember that story? And what did he say? I don't want to die today, and I don't want you to die. Right? Now, sometimes that's hard to feel. Sometimes that's hard to hear. Sometimes you would like it a little bit better, but it's better than dying. Fair? Okay, so what she's pouring out to you is that if you'll walk it out, God won't only take you through forgiveness, he'll take you to a whole other hidden place in him that you can't find any other way, called compassion. But it doesn't end at forgiveness. Because what happened, Gabby could do this, and listen, some people can, by the grace of God, if God calls them to. You don't have a relationship with your dad currently because you felt like God said, go ahead, you tell me.
I really felt the Lord tell me, like, you can't open that door. And I think it's because he's choosing not to change still. And I know that because my sister's been talking to me. But even to start the healing, I had to let go of my mom and my sister and my dad. Like, I heard the Lord clearly tell me, you need to just depend on me. I will be your mother, I will be your father, I will be your sister, I will be whatever you need me to be, but you need to let go of that relationship because it was really toxic. I mean, Danny can tell you there'd be so many times we'll get together and I just became a different person. It was the spiritual ties that it was involving me. Is like I was breaking it off here, and then I go see them, you're like, oh, you're roped in again. Like all these things would just start popping up. I was being tormented, and God's like, no, you need to cut it off.
We don't recognize the power of the familiar. I would get home sometimes from being at work, and Ileana would look at me, and she goes, you talked to your dad today, didn't you? I said, how do you know? It's because I can hear it in your voice. And I would hear him talking in his Atlanta accent, and it would just come out. Not purposely, it just would come out. Why? It's familiar. Now, some of you are like, look, there ain't nothing above family. Yeah, there is, Jesus Christ. One of the greatest tragedies is when we prioritize our life and we prioritize family. There's nothing wrong with family, but they're not above God. And God's trying to get you to a place of healing and restoration so that you can make an impact in your family, not get sucked back into the familiar. In a moment, I'll give you another testimony as we end, but that ties some of that in as well. Gabby, what would you say, just to wrap it up, what would your encouragement be to somebody who is somewhere on the spectrum? Maybe they haven't forgiven, maybe they have forgiven. I appreciate what you said about being in the midst of just doing life, because you have to do life along the way, and that's sometimes why it's extended, because God knows if he tried to do too much, you couldn't function the other ways, and that's the grace of God and the mercy of God. But there's somewhere on this spectrum between forgiveness and compassion. What would you say to them?
I know I kind of get that question, like, well, how did you just do it? And I was like, I just did. Like the song was saying, just walk in obedience and you see history change. Just do that. Like, stop worrying about getting your justification back or why didn't people speak up, and just focus on you. And like, when I was focusing on myself, I saw God working in my spouse. I've seen him work in my kids. Like, just almost like they say, just do you. Just let God start working in you and stop focusing like, well, my desire is this. No, ask God, like, God, what is my main focus? What is the main thing I need to be releasing? And just really allow him, when you're feeling that stirring in your heart, just allow him to walk in and work in you, because it is the most beautiful feeling when you walk away and you release whatever it is the Lord was releasing in you. And it's just allow God in. That's all he's asking, is just an open door, and not close the bedroom doors. Let him in that one too. So, because sometimes we try to hide things. Well, guess what? God already saw it. So quit hiding it.
Well, thank you, Gabby. Thank you for sharing your life. Thank you for sharing your heart. Can you give her a round of applause, please? And Liana, can you come play? We're good. We'll just leave it right here. I know some of these things can be hard to hear because the pain that you experienced and continue to experience is very real. I can't identify with that. I won't even try to speak to it other than biblically, where Jesus had already been beaten and was hanging on a cross. And he had to literally move his body to get air enough to speak. And yet he found it important enough to say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. The key of forgiveness, it is so powerful. And that's why Satan will push you so hard and press on that nerve of hurt as often as he can, because he doesn't want you to forgive. No, they don't deserve it. And maybe some of you today are like, not only do they deserve that, they certainly don't deserve compassion. But yet at the cross, we see compassion. A dear friend of mine who's a pastor at another church, some of you know him, some of you know this story, but he preached 3 times on a Sunday about worship and forgiveness. And he was in the shower, and his wife came in and said, you need to take this phone call. So he hops out of the shower, quickly takes the phone call, and finds out that his sister had been murdered by her living boyfriend, beaten to death. As tragic as that is, the greater tragedy for him was she had lived in their house, had gotten her life straight, had gotten back where she was supposed to be, had gone through the school of ministry, was moving on with God, and then the familiar started to weave its way. She knew he was bad news, but she missed his family, so she would go to family barbecues. Because I'm going to reach the family, right? I've gone through the school of ministry. For too long, they're back together. For too long, she's living with him. My friend hears the news, gets back in the shower, and the Spirit of God, and only the way the Spirit of God can. And I hope he's speaking to you today, even through what Gabby shared and maybe this testimony. The Spirit of God spoke a really hard word to him, but only the way that the Holy Spirit can, where you don't feel like condemned. You just know that this is going to be difficult. And he said, you preached 3 times last week about forgiveness. Now you get to walk it out. just yesterday. You told, and it was to young people, you told these young people about forgiveness. Now you get to walk it out. And he said, I promise you, Tom, through gritted teeth. He said, God, I choose to forgive. And he said the guy's name. He went through the trial. He went to the court. He watched the trial. Obviously, the whole family's broken. But he came back and he told me, he said, you know what was amazing? He said, I went to the sentencing, and they sentenced him to life in prison, I believe is what it was. And he said when they sentenced him, he let out this scream. He said, but it sounded like a little boy. And he said, you can't send me there, they're going to hurt me. And he said, in an instant, he goes, I could understand and I had compassion for what had ever happened to him in prison before and what that had done in his life and why he could have gone to the places that he went to, even with my own sister. And he said, I promise you, out of everybody in my family, I'm the only one that walked out of that courtroom with any kind of peace. It's compassion. Gabby, that I hope I never forget that analogy, the sheet over their head. It's just images. But Pastor, I'm not an image. No, you're not. You're in the image of God. He knows your name. But to Satan, you're just somebody else to hurt. And if I can bring deception in in their lives and I can hurt people, he's going to do it. They should have known better. Again, Gabby said, you can't go looking for the why. If you dig around for the why, you're never going to find the who. And that's Jesus. If you stick and you dig for the why, it's going to get you stuck until you just choose to say, God, I choose to forgive. And start there. And then let him lead you through to compassion. I'm going to ask a question this morning. Who is it that you're not letting have compassion in your life? This is a mature Christian question. They don't deserve it. I'm not arguing that. It's not an issue of deserving, it's an issue of obedience. Who's not getting your compassion? I didn't say your relationship. I didn't say your time. Who is not getting your compassion? Because I would almost be willing to bet they're not the only person that's not getting compassion in your life either. What they desire in you is kindness, is what the Bible says. Love is patient and kind. When you have to be patient, you have to be kind. That's what love is. That's a hard one to learn, isn't it, Gabby? While we're being patient in our healing, we're not always the kindest person. So who is it? The reason I ask you is because when you come here and you say, I want to be like Jesus, Jesus is on the cross and says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Not only did he walk in forgiveness, he walked in compassion. Do you know where the power comes from so often? It says that Jesus had compassion upon them and he healed them. There's a power in compassion that you're never going to taste and to see until you're willing to say, God, forgiveness isn't enough. I appreciate that I have forgiven, but I'm still in prison because I swear to you, if they were in front of me, it would not be, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Again, I'm not contending that you have to have a relationship. Jesus didn't have a relationship with the Pharisees or the Romans after they crucified him. Sometimes God does that. Sometimes there's a grace, and I'm not denoting one way or the other than to say you have to be led by the Spirit, Spirit-formed, Spirit-filled, and Spirit-led in those areas. God can do it. I've seen God do it. I have no testimonies of God doing it, but it's not the course for everybody, and it's not the course for this morning. The course for this morning is who needs your compassion? As soon as I get my apology, I haven't read one time where the Pharisees looked up on the cross like, hey, sorry. Roman soldiers like, hey, my bad. Please forgive me. Pastor, it's kind of heavy. It's not heavy. It's the doorway to freedom. The heaviness is the struggle that says, do I want to carry this weight? The heaviness you feel is the weight that you don't always recognize because you've built your internal mechanism to be able to carry the weight of unforgiveness, bitterness, anger, resentment, and a lack of compassion. And you feel like you're okay. And God's like, do you feel that weight? You're not okay. It's time to let it go. It's time to come into a new administration. Luke 4:18-19. There is she prophesied to the prison door today. If you will receive it, all I need to do is walk through it. So what are we going to do, Pastor? I'm going to ask you to walk through the door. I want you to, I'm going to invite the pastors that are in here to come and stand. If you need, it's not if you need prayer. If you want to walk through that door this morning, come stand in front of one of them. They're going to lead you through the door. If you've never forgiven, they'll lead you through that. If there's a place in you that says, my compassion muscle is broken, they can help you with that. In a moment, I'm going to pray. I'm going to just give you a personal testimony from my own life. I was 13 years old at a camp. Most of you know my parents were pastors. My dad not just left the ministry, he left the whole family one day. Everything we knew in our life was different, was gone. Anyway, 13 years old, so some 8 years later, I'm at a camp, and this guy is preaching on forgiveness, and I'm in the back. And he looked right at me. He did an altar call, and he said, some of you need to forgive your father, and don't make me come get you. I didn't make it to the front. I made it 2 steps further than I was, and I started to sob. And sob. And sob. Nobody prayed for me. Nobody did anything. But God touched me. And from that moment on, even though where there was a process and there was other things I walked through, I never saw my dad the same way. It would be decades later that I got compassion. That was a whole other process. But I'm telling you today, from a person that wishes it had been earlier in my marriage when all of this would happen. If you're in the beginning of your marriage or new in your marriage, today is your day to set a course that maybe you're not on right now. That's my best plea. Can we pray? Can you stand with me? If you would like to come for prayer, you can come for prayer. Father, we thank you that you've opened the door. Even the shirt that I wore today, we opened the door. Not we don't, you do. God, thank you for Gabby and Daniel and their lives that are prophesying literally to prison doors in people's lives and prophesying the lock open. Declaring the acceptable year of the Lord. And God, maybe this feels like just a lot of stuff got dropped off and I don't even know how to unpack it. God, that's fine. It does. But today, there's an administration. Today is the day of salvation. Today is the day of the move of God. So God, as we prophesy to the kingdoms of unforgiveness, or the kings of unforgiveness, the principalities and powers over the lives of people, they keep them from compassion. They keep them from complete healing. That even better, what Gabby said, this closes a chapter in my life. Wanting the why is no reason to keep the chapter open. I just want Jesus. It's the Spirit of God, would that rise up in people's hearts? And if they come for prayer, God, would you meet them today? Thank you for this morning. Thank you for the testimony. Thank you for your life and all that you've done for us. We give you all the praise and all the honor and all the glory in Jesus' name. Amen. If you'd like prayer, please come and allow them to stand and pray with you. If not, feel free to be dismissed. And we will see you on Wednesday at our 30:30 service. And that is a blessed time. 30 minutes of worship and prayer, 30 minutes of a message. And we're seeing God do amazing things and giving us amazing encouragements along the way. So just come.